So, anyway, again, I would say that's kind of, that we know how we got to this point now. And I'm proposing and moving forward that this is the approach that we take, and then we'll go from there.
For Representative Dye, why did you not inform TICO that you put in a state budget proviso to close our trail when you attended our Silver Gulch celebration this summer, about a month after the legislative session ended?
Because I hadn't put in a budget proviso into the bill because I wasn't in the process. That would have been my predecessor that would have maybe had some involvement at a limited level, but it wasn't really a point that I was working on. The other thing is that I just came in as a citizen, right? As a normal farmer person into this system. And I live in Garfield County where we lost Central Ferry and we lost Lyons Ferry parks, which were places that our community particularly enjoyed. And then we got Lyons Ferry back after much hard work of Mark Schessler to return one of the two parks. So from my perspective was, wow, we didn't have any say and they closed our park. But I'm sure there was a process. It was just that I wasn't involved at the level where I could have done anything. It was a federal park that closed, the state park was returned. I also didn't know when I arrived in Olympia how bad the 2008 recession was on the state government. And it was a shock to me. It was something new that, oh, I now understand completely what difficult times our state has gone through during that downturn and is now just basically coming up to level. So these are things that you learn as you go through life and you realize, now I understand more completely how things happen. And I think that Representative Schmick is proposing a really even-handed approach to going forward with this community, and I think we have to trust that the people here have goodwill toward each other to work things out.
Question 10, could you inform us more of some of the sources of potential money for trail restoration, such as federal money sources for trails, such as TAP, the Transportation Alternative Program, the recent bequest of $200,000 for John Wayne Trail that the state has received, the possibility of using a portion of the hotel motel tax reserved for developing tourism, the state's recent passage of $1 billion budget for projects such as bike paths. Further, why is it nearby legislative districts have been able to find money with a portion of their trail funded and you have not been able to? Representative Schmick.
Really, the only money I have direct control or make suggestions for is the capital budget. These other sources of money that are out there, I hope that you would help pursue that. But the capital budget is where, that's where I can make a suggestion or make a request for monies for these type of projects come from. Those other sources are outside the perusal of, frankly. We can make requests, but if there's money out there, I hope that your organization will be pursuing it.
Representative Dye, could you inform us of some sources of potential money for trail restoration, such as federal monies, trails for TAP program, the recent bequest of $200,000, John Wayne Trail, the possibility of using a portion of hotel motel tax, and the recent state's passage of a $1 billion budget for projects such as bikes. Further, why is the nearby legislative districts? Oh, I know, just knew so. That's not fair. Okay.
Well, you know, I think you've done a lot of good homework since we last spoke. And so I encourage you to continue to pursue and think out of the box and pursue those portions that you can reasonably access. And also just encourage the enthusiasm of your community. You had said that you had a little fundraiser and used the proceeds to proceed on and push on with your organization. But make sure that you get all the stakeholders involved in the conversation like Representative Schmick is suggesting.
Representative Schmick, can you please quantify for us the following regarding the section of trail you wish to close? A, incidents of nature, incidents in the nature of the amount of crime on the trail, assessments of the amount of usage of the trail, rattlesnake danger on the trail, noxious weed danger on the trail, and liabilities on the issue on the trail. How much of this is a problem compared to other parks and trails in Washington? Have any other parks or trails ever been closed for these reasons?
I think that from this time forward, we have a committee to take a look at these, to look into it specifically, so that we can get answers for these questions, because I think they're all legitimate, and we need to take a look at them. So we have some hard numbers. It'd be difficult for me to say, nor I don't think it's my place to say specifically on every one of these issues. Now, as far as trails being closed for these issues, I do not know. I can find out, and I will do that. And I'll write it down as a question to follow up with. If there's been trails closed because of this issue before, I will take a look at that. Well, I think that we can derive how much it's going to cost to control the noxious weeds along the trail. I think that some of the property owners, they might be able to better address the problems that they've had on the trail that are along there. And so, I mean, they're probably more the experts on this issue than myself.
Okay, Representative Dye, can you please quantify this following regarding the section of the trail you wish to close? A, the incidence, nature, or amount of crime on the trail. B, the amount of usage of the trail. C, rail safety danger. D, noxious weed. E, liability issue. How much of a problem is this compared to other trails and parks? Have you ever known of any parks or trails to be closed for these reasons?
I think I would turn that question to you because you're doing a lot of hard work to study the liability and the responsibility. If the Trails Association is going to go forward with their plans, then you will bear some of the liability risk, I presume. And you've done the research to tell us how much liability risk you might incur in that, or are you going to be not liable for any risk if it's your association that's in charge of the maintenance and those types of things? So I think you've got probably as much information to present to us as we do to you at this point. I think that Representative Schmick's proposal will work well to address a lot of these issues in a way that gives us more consistently reliable information to make decisions on.
Representative Dye, since you're up there, how much money does the state currently spend on maintaining the John Wayne Trail? How much for the east end compared to the sections you would allow, that you will now allow to remain open?
You know, I'll defer to my seatmate and also to Representative Kim on those questions.
Okay. Yep, Representative Schmick, how much money does the state currently spend on maintaining the John Wayne Trail? How much for the east end compared to the sections you will now allow to remain open?
I first of all, didn't say it was going to remain open. I said we have a work group working forward, and that on the basis of that work group and the things that they'll talk about, we'll make our decision then. I can find out from the Parks Department how much money is spent, for maintenance, and how much money has been invested on the portions of the trail from the Columbia River west. I can certainly look in and find that out for you.
Representative Schmick, since you're standing up there, if the John Wayne Trail is closed, how will people be able to visit the scab lands?
I'm looking forward to the work group that we're going to have, and that we can work through the issue, because it's basically what are we going to do from now on? And I will gladly sit on that also, so that I have firsthand knowledge of what's discussed, how it's discussed, and how everything's put together for that proposal to move forward.
Representative Dye, if the John Wayne Trail is closed, how will people be able to visit the scab lands?
I don't know enough about the issue to really tell you how people will visit the scab lands. I've driven there.
Okay. For both of you, it says Schmick, but it means both of you, responding to the challenge you issued to us in the media about how much usage, funding, or volunteer cleanup activity will you require from volunteer citizens groups such as John Wayne Trail Riders and the Tekoa Trail and Trestle Association in order to keep the trail open?
I believe that this is a great topic for that work group to work on. I do think that there needs to be some ownership of the trail. I mean, we've got 35 years experience right now. And it's, where do we go from here?
Representative Dye, responding to the challenge you issued to us in the media. Thanks, Rob. How much issue, funding, or volunteer cleanup activity will we require?
You know, I didn't challenge anything in the media. I just stated that was,
Okay, then you don't have to answer it. Sorry to bother you. Done. Okay, so now, Fred, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, someone want to get the lights? This is Fred Wagner, and who's a 58-year-old cancer survivor, and Tristan Smith, who's an 18-year-old. They're from Tekoa and Oakdale. And then this summer, they took their bikes along with Pete and AJ in the support vehicle, and they went all the way from the trailhead of North Bend to Tekoa, all the way across the state. But Pete is, Fred, these pictures are just of the section in question that would be closed, right?
This is a shot of the bridge across the Columbia River from the east side of the trail, showing that it's in very decent shape and very able to be traveled on. This is a shot of the trail east from the bridge, showing the trail condition, the road surface, or the trail surface itself. It's a little rough, rideable for sturdier riders, larger tires. This is one of the few green areas we came across right out of Beverly, and then past the area into the scablands. This is one of the many bypasses that we came to. The trestle or bridge that was here was removed by persons unknown, according to everybody I've spoken with. And this is just a trail that goes down into the gully and then back up again. And another example of that. And this is an example of the only dumping that I found basically all along the trail. Somebody decided to dump their grass clippings in the middle of the trail. The rest of the trail was basically the same. It's all compact gravel, loose gravel, and some loose sand. This is one of the bypasses we had to go around the Cow Creek Trestle. And then the trail surface is essentially the same, basically from the Columbia River all the way to Tekoa. And then the first swamp we encountered, a tiny little thing, fun to ride through. And the only water supply basically on the east side of the trail. An example of a bridge. One of the views of Rock Lake from the trail. And these is one of two trestles next to Rock Lake. And the second trestle. And this is an example of what I was told was volunteerism, fixing a bridge right outside of hole in the ground. These are the cement trestles right outside of Rosalia. Notice the trail surface is still real loose gravel. This is more outside of Rosalia. And this is the trestle at Tekoa.
Great. Thank you, Fred. We have the lights. Okay, so we're going to entertain questions now and comments from anyone. But first, we're going to start with anyone from the Tekoa City Council, and then we're going to hear from elected officials. And elected officials, really brief, please, because there's a lot of people here. And then I want to also get to people who traveled far and wide. Like Wade drove over 200 miles to get here. We're going to want to hear from him, and we're really going to try to be fair about this. Okay. So first, anyone in the Tekoa City Council have a question at this moment?
I do.
Oh, please, Mayor.
I think everybody can hear me. I'll stand up. I don't think I need to use the microphone, but and Representative Schmick, one thing that I was disappointed, I guess, maybe in this lack of answers. And I know it all went back to committee. We were hoping that you would say what you thought, what your thoughts were, why you did what you did, why you thought you need to do what you did, And I was particularly concerned about going ahead with this legislation